Some things are never meant to be found alone. I whispered to myself as I nursed the last sip of Chardonnay, the glass cold against my fingers and the VIP lounge around me glowing in soft, golden light that bounced off polished floors and crystal chandeliers. My name is Emily Parker, 24, a volunteer for the World Cup, and I thought tonight would be just another quiet shift helping guests settle in, checking programs, keeping the champagne flowing, until a black bag slid silently from under a velvet seat, nudged by someone, or something, unseen, and landed with a soft thud on the marble, sending my pulse spiking and my breath catching in my throat. I froze mid-step, eyes locked on the bag. And then he appeared, Lucas Harrington, 6'2", dark hair slicked back, eyes a piercing storm blue that seemed to cut through the warmth of the room like a blade, his tailored black suit immaculate, aura calm, yet undeniably commanding, moving toward me with purpose, each step measured, deliberate, echoing faintly against the tall ceilings, and suddenly the distance between us seemed both immense and impossibly close. The soft hum of conversation faded until all I could hear was my own racing heartbeat and the subtle click of my heels against marble. The bag now sitting at the center of a circle of tension I couldn't escape, his gaze fixed on it, and then on me, as if he could see every thought flickering across my mind, every hesitation, every tremor in my hands. And in that quiet, impossibly charged moment, he leaned slightly forward, voice low and precise, carrying just enough weight to make my spine stiffen. That bag belongs to me. I wanted to step back, but my legs refused, rooted to the spot by curiosity and fear intertwined, while two men flanked him silently, their presence pressing in, marking the space like invisible lines of authority. And I realized then how small and ordinary I truly felt in this room of gold, glass, and hidden power. Instinct told me to grab the bag and run, but the way Lucas held his hand, palm hovering just above mine, stopped me, the warmth of the room contrasting with the cold certainty of his stare, and I sensed without him saying a word, that crossing him was unwise, that the world behind these doors operated on rules I had no understanding of, rules enforced quietly but absolutely. And just as my fingers brushed the strap, a movement in the corner caught my attention, a man lunging, reaching, driven by unknown motives, and Lucas's reaction was immediate, fluid, protective yet precise, intercepting, redirecting, and I stumbled back, breath sharp in my lungs, eyes wide, heart hammering as he contained the chaos in emotion so controlled it almost seemed rehearsed. I realized then that the bag, the lounge, the golden lights, and even my own trembling hands were now part of a game I hadn't signed up for, one that Lucas Harrington ruled silently. And as he finally secured the bag, taking a step closer, his storm blue eyes locked onto mine, and he said, barely above a whisper, yet carrying through the charged space between us, "You've stirred things you can't run from." I understood that tonight had changed everything, and in that instant, the ordinary life I had clung to evaporated, leaving only the sharp awareness that my choices, and his, would ripple into every moment that followed. The room still felt suspended in tension, the soft clinking of glasses and quiet murmurs from the other guests now a distant hum behind the sharp focus of Lucas Harrington's gaze. Emily Parker's hands trembled as she adjusted the strap of the black bag, her mind racing through 1,000 possibilities, wondering what secrets it might hold and why his presence made the ordinary air feel so charged, so heavy with unspoken rules. She could feel the heat of the lounge lighting brushing against her cheeks while Lucas took a deliberate step back, giving her a fraction of space, yet never breaking eye contact, his storm blue eyes scanning her reactions with a precision that sent a shiver down her spine, a mix of apprehension and awe coiling in her chest. And for a moment, she wanted nothing more than to vanish into the soft shadows near the terrace windows, where the rain cast shimmering ribbons across the marble floors, the city lights outside dancing in puddles on the streets. Yet some invisible tether held her in place, a pull stronger than fear, stronger than her instinct to flee. Lucas spoke, low and measured, voice carrying an intensity that seemed to wrap around her thoughts. "Follow me." And though she hesitated, the subtle motion of his hand and the almost imperceptible nod from his associates guided her forward, each step across the lounge echoing softly, the black bag held close now, as if it contained not just objects but the weight of decisions yet to be made, and Emily's mind swirled with questions, curiosity clawing through anxiety, every heartbeat loud enough to feel in her ears, the smell of polished wood and faint cologne mixing in a way that made the air taste sharp with anticipation. As they moved toward the exit, the soft velvet ropes and gold accents of the lounge seemed to blur around her, the crowd parting instinctively as Lucas's presence commanded the space, not with words, but with an authority so palpable it made her step lighter, more aware, yet every inch of her wanted to cling to the mundane safety she had known for years, the quiet life of volunteering, helping fans, being ordinary, suddenly feeling like a fragile thread beneath the weight of something immense and unknown. Outside, the drizzle had turned into a steady rain, droplets tapping against her coat and running in thin rivulets along the edges of the bag, the city glowing with reflections and distant sirens faintly wailing. Yet in that moment, all Emily could focus on was the calm, controlled stride of Lucas beside her, the way his eyes never wavered, the world narrowing to the space between them. And she realized the bag was more than an object. It was a key to a world she had only glimpsed, a world of calculated movements, quiet power, and silent codes. As they stepped into the car waiting under the awning, black, sleek, doors opening with a whisper, Lucas gestured for her to sit. The sound of the engine starting smooth, almost seductive in its mechanical precision, and Emily sank into the leather seat, hands clutching the bag, heart still racing, mind spinning with the questions she had not yet dared to ask, and he slid into the driver's side, the door clicking shut, eyes briefly meeting hers in the rearview mirror, storm blue and inscrutable, conveying both warning and promise in a single glance. The rain now streaming down the windows in sheets, turning the city into streaked watercolors, while the soft purr of the car moving into traffic became a rhythm she found herself following. Each turn and stop a careful dance that made her aware of every sensation, every detail of the night, from the scent of wet asphalt to the faint warmth of the car interior, and she felt a strange thrill mixed with apprehension, a pulse of excitement that this night, her ordinary life, was shifting, bending towards something she could not yet name, a moment suspended between the known and the impossible, and Lucas's hand rested lightly on the console, presence undeniable, as he finally spoke again, voice calm, authoritative, "Do not worry about the streets, just keep your eyes open." And Emily understood, with the first clarity of the evening, that she was no longer alone, that every decision, every step, every glance from this moment forward would carry weight, and in that realization, she felt herself leaning into the unknown, aware that the path ahead, mysterious and uncertain, would test her in ways she had never imagined. Yet for the first time, she also felt the faint spark of trust, fragile, tentative, but enough to carry her through the storm outside and the quiet storm building within. The car glided through the rain-slicked streets of the city, windshield wipers slicing through sheets of water, turning the world outside into streaked blurs of neon and shadow. And Emily Parker sat rigid, her hands folded over the black bag, knuckles white, heart still hammering from the earlier tension, every fiber of her being alert, sensing the weight of Lucas Harrington's presence beside her, a man whose calm demeanor concealed a meticulous precision, the faint hum of the engine beneath them blending with the soft patter of rain to create a rhythm that seemed to mirror the rapid pace of her thoughts. She glanced at him, noticing the subtle way his eyes scanned the surroundings, taking in every detail of the streets, the reflections in puddles, the occasional headlights cutting through the darkness, and she felt a strange mixture of awe and uncertainty, knowing that he was in control, yet drawn to the intensity that radiated from him, a silent promise of protection and unspoken authority that wrapped around her like a shield even as it tightened the invisible grip of obligation. Lucas spoke, voice low and deliberate, almost conversational. "Keep your eyes on the road and your hands on the bag." And Emily obeyed, fingers brushing the leather as if the weight of the contents might anchor her racing thoughts. And she realized that the world they were entering was layered with hidden rules, a landscape of subtle power plays, decisions made in whispers and glances, where the ordinary could unravel in seconds if one misstepped. Yet in this structured chaos, Lucas moved with certainty, his every motion deliberate, guiding her through the unfamiliar terrain with a quiet, uncompromising authority that both intimidated and fascinated her. The city lights flickered across his face through the rain-speckled windows, casting fleeting patterns across his sharp features, storm blue eyes catching glimpses of movement outside, and Emily could not stop her mind from imagining what the night held ahead, the possibilities of discovery, the unraveling of mysteries she did not yet understand, and a sense of anticipation mingled with fear coursed through her, making her acutely aware of every sound, every shift in the car, every subtle nuance of his presence. As they turned onto a narrower street, Lucas adjusted the rearview mirror, catching her glance and offering a fraction of a reassuring smile. Minimal, controlled, yet enough to signal that she was not in danger as long as she remained attentive. The car sliding over wet asphalt with smooth precision, tires whispering against the slick pavement, and Emily felt a strange trust forming. Fragile yet undeniable, a recognition that this night, these moments, were pivotal, shaping a path that diverged from the ordinary into something charged with potential and unknown responsibility. She exhaled slowly, letting a fraction of the tension leave her shoulders while her mind raced. Considering the questions she had yet to ask, the stories the bag might contain, the intentions behind Lucas's calm authority, and the unspoken understanding that she had stepped into a world measured in calculated movements and quiet control, a world that would challenge every assumption she had ever held about safety and influence. And yet, amidst the storm and uncertainty, there was a pulse of exhilaration, a sense of awakening to a new dimension of possibility that made her heart beat in tandem with the rhythm of the rain, the hum of the engine, and the controlled presence of Lucas beside her, guiding, observing, and silently declaring that from this moment forward, the course of her night, her choices, and perhaps her life, had shifted irreversibly, a delicate balance of trust, attention, and anticipation that hung between them as the city unfolded before the rain-streaked windows. The cityscape stretched before Emily Parker through the rain-speckled window of the sleek black car, streets reflecting neon advertisements and traffic lights in puddles that shimmered like liquid glass. And she could not remember ever feeling so acutely aware of every detail. The texture of the bag under her fingers, the subtle scent of rain mingling with the faint warmth of the leather seats, the rhythm of the windshield wipers, and the way Lucas Harrington's hands moved over the steering wheel with a precision that spoke of decades of control and careful observation. She watched him from the corner of her eye, storm blue eyes scanning every intersection, every shadowed alley, every reflective surface, and there was an intensity in the way he measured the distance between cars and the timing of each turn that made her stomach tighten. A mix of apprehension and awe swirling as she realized that this night was teaching her a new definition of patience, strategy, and presence. And yet, amidst the controlled tension, there was a strange current of exhilaration that pulled at her chest, a pulse that matched the soft hum of the engine, the patter of rain, and the occasional distant wail of a siren, reminding her that the city was alive in a way she had never felt before. She thought about the bag, its contents unknown, the way Lucas had moved to secure it with calm authority, the invisible code that governed his actions, and she felt herself leaning into an understanding that this was a world she could not run from, a world of quiet power, unseen rules, and invisible stakes. And yet, she did not feel powerless, only acutely alert, attuned to the nuances of each motion, each glance, each sound, every heartbeat in the confined space of the car, and she realized that the trust forming between them, tentative and delicate as it was, carried weight that would shape the next steps, the choices she would make, the paths she would follow. Lucas's voice broke the silence, low and deliberate, almost conversational, but carrying a gravity that filled the cabin. "Keep the bag close and observe everything." And Emily nodded, her pulse quickening not from fear, but from the clarity of understanding that she was being guided, not coerced, through a labyrinth of unknowns. A series of decisions that required attention, intuition, and responsiveness. And as the car turned another slick corner, the reflections of streetlights and passing vehicles casting shifting patterns across her face. She felt the subtle thrill of stepping into the unknown, of being at the edge of her own certainty, of watching the ordinary dissolve into a sequence of calculated moments under Lucas's watchful eyes. And every sense sharpened, from the tactile pressure of the bag against her hands, to the way the soft interior lighting highlighted the contours of his face, to the faint scent of his cologne mingling with the smell of wet pavement seeping through slightly cracked windows. And she understood that tonight would not be measured in minutes or hours, but in choices, attentiveness, and the silent interplay of observation and action, a suspended dance of presence and consequence. And as the city lights streaked across the windows, the rain rhythmically tapping on the roof, Emily felt herself becoming a part of this careful, deliberate world, alert and responsive, aware that the unfolding moments were both fragile and immense, and that every turn of the wheel, every glance, every soft word from Lucas Harrington carried with it meaning that could not be ignored, shaping the night, shaping her awareness, shaping the way she would move through this new, intricate reality. The car finally slowed as they approached a quiet side street, the glow of streetlights reflecting in puddles like shards of glass. And Emily Parker shifted slightly, feeling the tension of the evening settling into a curious, anticipatory weight in her chest, her fingers still clasped around the black bag, as if holding onto it might anchor her racing thoughts, while Lucas Harrington's eyes remained alert on the road, storm blue and calculating, taking in every shadow, every reflective surface, every hint of movement in the slick, rain-soaked streets. And she realized the ordinary world she had known moments ago had dissolved into this carefully measured realm of control, attention, and silent rules that she had only begun to perceive. She stole glances at him, noting the slight tilt of his head, the controlled rhythm of his breathing, the way his hands moved with precision. And she felt both a pull toward understanding him and an acute awareness of her own vulnerability, the thrill of being present in a world orchestrated with invisible threads making her pulse quicken, her mind alert to every nuance, every slight sound, every shift in the car's motion, as the soft hum of the engine blended with the patter of rain on the roof and the faint scrape of tires over wet asphalt into a meditative rhythm that both calmed and heightened her senses. Lucas's voice broke the silence, steady and deliberate. "Keep your focus. Observe everything. Nothing is as simple as it seems." And Emily nodded, absorbing each word, feeling the weight of its meaning settle over her like a mantle, understanding that the bag she held was more than a physical object, that it contained consequences, decisions, and potential that she was only beginning to grasp, and that the night was unfolding as a series of precise moments requiring full awareness and measured action. A choreography of perception and response in which she had an essential role, as the car turned into an alleyway flanked by high brick walls, glistening from the rain, the soft echo of their tires creating an intimate, tense resonance. Emily's mind raced, imagining the hidden stories within the city, the untold events that had brought Lucas to this precise moment, the unspoken codes he navigated, and she felt herself leaning into the heightened state of attention he demanded, aware that her own instincts were now sharpened, that every detail, the reflections of wet windows, the distant flicker of a neon sign, the subtle shifts in light and shadow, was significant, and the ordinary past seemed a distant memory, replaced by a sense of being both participant and observer in a world defined by control, observation, and calculated interaction. Lucas slowed near a small, nondescript building, engine idling, the soft rumble blending with the rain, and he turned slightly to give her a fraction of a reassuring look, calm yet commanding, signaling that she had reached the next stage of this carefully constructed night. And Emily felt the tension of anticipation mingling with a cautious trust, her chest tightening and relaxing in rhythm with the car and the storm outside, the wet streets reflecting the fractured light like scattered jewels, her senses alive with awareness of sound, scent, movement, and energy, knowing that each step, each glance, each subtle action from this point forward would be part of a sequence with meaning and consequence. And she understood that the night's journey, though still uncertain, had begun to teach her the art of observation, patience, and presence in a world orchestrated with precision, a world in which she was now an integral, attentive part, and the black bag resting in her hands. The car, the rain, and Lucas's careful guidance formed a delicate balance of focus and trust, anticipation and vigilance, shaping her awareness and defining the rhythm of everything that would follow. Emily Parker stepped out of the car, the rain having eased into a steady drizzle that traced gentle rivulets down the edges of the hood and formed small puddles at her feet, and she felt the weight of the black bag in her hands, the subtle heft grounding her amid the swirl of anticipation and curiosity that surrounded her, the soft glow of streetlights reflecting off wet pavement creating a distorted pattern of light and shadow that made the ordinary seem extraordinary, every sound amplified. The distant hum of traffic, the faint scuff of her shoes against concrete, the whisper of wind through narrow alleyways, and the subtle click of Lucas Harrington's polished shoes as he approached beside her with measured calm. Storm blue eyes assessing the surroundings, calculating, aware of everything, yet moving with a fluidity that suggested both patience and absolute command. She adjusted the bag again, tracing the edges, feeling the texture, wondering about the contents and the significance of the events that had led them to this moment, her pulse quickening as the tension of unknown possibilities pressed against her chest, the ordinary world slipping further from her grasp with every measured step. Lucas spoke softly, his voice carrying across the quiet street. "Stay close, observe carefully, and remember everything." And Emily nodded, acutely aware of the resonance in his tone, the way his words shaped the rhythm of her thoughts, guiding her attention to the small details, the angle of a window reflecting the city lights, the subtle pattern of rain streaking along the walls, the distant movement of people she could not yet see, all forming a backdrop against which her awareness expanded, each moment weighted with significance, each step a careful negotiation between her instincts and the subtle guidance he provided. They moved toward a nondescript doorway tucked between buildings, the entrance illuminated by a single flickering light, and the subtle scent of damp concrete mingled with the faint warmth emanating from inside, drawing her forward, curiosity mingling with caution, the bag held close as a symbol of both responsibility and mystery, the night air brushing against her face in delicate bursts as Lucas opened the door, stepping aside for her to enter. First, the interior space revealed a sparse, organized room, clean and purposeful, the faint echo of their footsteps against polished floors creating a rhythm that mirrored the racing of her heart, and she felt a complex mixture of apprehension and fascination as she realized that this was a space where every object, every detail, every movement mattered, and that her presence, along with the bag, held a quiet but undeniable significance. Lucas's eyes followed her, scanning the room, mapping, measuring, and Emily could sense the layers of thought beneath his composed exterior, the careful observation and awareness that governed his every action, and she adjusted her stance, aware of the weight of being watched and the responsibility implicit in holding the bag, feeling a surge of attentiveness, clarity, and readiness that stretched every sense, from the subtle sounds of the room to the faint aroma of leather and polished wood, each element a note in the complex symphony of presence and perception. And as Lucas finally spoke again, voice calm and measured, "You are exactly where you need to be." Emily felt the tension of the night coalesce into an acute awareness, a sharpened focus that would guide her through the unfolding moments, balancing curiosity, observation, and cautious engagement as the bag, the room, and Lucas's vigilant presence converged into a single, charged, and unforgettable experience. Emily Parker stepped further into the room Lucas Harrington had opened for her, the faint scent of polished wood and subtle leather enveloping the space, and she could not help but notice the meticulous arrangement of every object, the calm order contrasting sharply with the chaos of the night outside, rain still drizzling against the narrow windows casting fragmented light across the floor, and she felt a mixture of apprehension and fascination, every sense heightened, from the cool touch of the marble window sill beneath her fingers to the distant hum of the city filtered through the walls, as if the world beyond had slowed to a careful, measured pulse that matched the deliberate movements of Lucas, who remained close, his storm blue eyes scanning the room with quiet intensity, hands occasionally adjusting the bag's position to ensure it remained secure, every motion controlled and precise. A silent instruction in focus and awareness. She breathed slowly, drawing in the crisp air tinged with faint rain and warmth. Feeling the tension in her shoulders ease slightly, yet remaining aware of the invisible boundaries in the room. The subtle power that defined the space. The unspoken rules that Lucas commanded without raising his voice. And she realized that she was learning to move within this rhythm, to observe, to absorb, to respond with awareness, her own instincts sharpening with every detail. From the patterns of shadow cast by the light to the minute changes. In the sound of her own movements against the floor, Lucas's voice broke the quiet, low and deliberate, each word carrying weight without volume. Notice everything. Even what seems small, nothing is trivial. And Emily nodded, the words sinking in as a lesson in presence, in patience, in the understanding that every choice, every glance, every measured breath was part of a larger sequence, a choreography of observation and consequence, and she felt the unusual thrill of responsibility. Her focus heightened, heart beating in careful rhythm with the soft tick of the rain against the glass. As she adjusted the bag again, tracing its contours, she sensed the layers of meaning, the untold stories contained within, and with Lucas moving beside her, guiding with subtle shifts in his stance, the room became a stage for awareness, a training in subtle perception, where every sound, every reflected light, every whisper of movement carried information, and she found herself attuned to it. All, noticing the slight shimmer of moisture on the window, the faint reflection of light on polished surfaces, the soft footfalls of her own shoes, the controlled shift of Lucas's weight, each detail a thread in the fabric of this new, intricate reality. The rain outside intensified, drumming softly against the windows, creating a gentle rhythm that echoed the internal cadence of her thoughts. Lucas's presence a constant reminder of precision and deliberate control, guiding her through each moment with quiet authority, and Emily felt the tension of the evening coalesce into acute awareness, a balance between focus, trust, and curiosity, knowing that the next decisions, the next movements, the next observations would be crucial, each connected to the previous and the next in a chain of attentive engagement, shaping not just the immediate circumstances, but her own understanding of the world she had entered, a world of subtle power, silent rules, and careful observation, where every gesture, every sound, every fleeting glance mattered. And as she stood there, bag in hand, rain and reflections surrounding them, she felt both the gravity and the exhilaration of being fully present, fully alert, fully part of the unfolding narrative, a participant in the careful, measured rhythm that Lucas Harrington commanded with quiet, undeniable authority. Emily Parker felt the tension in the room shift as Lucas Harrington moved with quiet purpose, his storm-blue eyes scanning the surroundings and then settling on her with a focused intensity that made her pulse quicken, and she realized that the air itself seemed charged, every sound magnified. The soft hum of the lighting, the faint drip of water from the rain-streaked windows, the subtle creak of the polished floor beneath their feet, all composing a rhythm that demanded her full attention. Each element a note in the careful, deliberate symphony of the space, and she felt her own awareness sharpen, every sense attuned, from the faint scent of damp concrete mixing with the subtle warmth of the room to the way shadows shifted as they moved, reflections bending light into patterns that revealed the depth of observation required in this controlled environment. Lucas spoke softly, voice low yet resonant, carrying authority without force. Pay attention to what you see and what you do, not see. And Emily nodded, feeling the weight of his words settle over her, the gravity of the situation pressing into her awareness, understanding that this was not merely about the bag she carried, but about the careful navigation of perception, observation, and presence, that each glance, each movement, each subtle shift in posture had meaning and consequence. And she felt a surge of cautious curiosity as she allowed herself to notice the small details, the texture of the walls, the reflections in the windows, the faint patterns of light across polished surfaces, each providing information that her mind absorbed like a map of invisible terrain. As Lucas moved to a side table, Arranging a few objects with precise gestures, Emily observed, noting the rhythm, the deliberate spacing, the subtle cues that spoke of careful planning, and she understood that this night was teaching her more than she had anticipated, lessons in patience, attention, and understanding the weight of presence, each moment layering awareness and responsibility upon her consciousness, sharpening her perception and reinforcing the silent rules of engagement within this carefully controlled domain. Outside, the rain had slowed to a mist, the city beyond the windows softened in tone, yet within the room, the contrast heightened her focus. The way Lucas's controlled movements intersected with her own tentative actions, creating a cadence of anticipation and insight. Each exchange of glances, each adjustment of posture, each nuanced observation a link in a chain that connected them through silent communication, trust, and understanding. She traced the edges of the bag again, feeling its reassuring weight, and realized that it was both a physical anchor and a symbol of the unfolding experience, that her attentiveness, her choices, and her reactions mattered in ways subtle yet significant, shaping the narrative and her own awareness, and Lucas's presence remained constant, a guiding force, yet allowing her space to navigate the complexities of the moment. Each step forward a lesson in balance, observation, and engagement. The soft tick of time passing merged with the distant rhythm of the city, the faint echo of footsteps, the subtle interplay of light and shadow, and Emily found herself immersed, fully attentive, every heartbeat in tune with the room, the bag, and the measured presence of Lucas Harrington, understanding that the night's journey, though still unfolding, had already reshaped her perception, her sense of focus, and her connection to the carefully orchestrated world around her, each moment a deliberate step along a path defined by observation, trust, and the quiet, undeniable authority that Lucas carried. Emily Parker took a slow, deliberate breath as the room seemed to settle around her. The rain outside now a fine mist that traced delicate lines down the windows, reflecting the soft glow of the streetlights in a fractured pattern that danced across the polished floor, and she realized that every sense was heightened, the sound of her own heartbeat, the subtle shift of air as Lucas Harrington moved beside her, the faint warmth of the leather seat from earlier lingering in her fingers as she held the black bag close, all combining to create a sharp awareness of presence, consequence, and the delicate balance between observation and action. Lucas's storm-blue eyes swept the space with quiet intensity, noting every reflection, every shadow, every small detail, his movements controlled yet fluid, as he gestured subtly toward the far corner where a narrow corridor hinted at further rooms and possibilities. And Emily felt the pull of curiosity, a mixture of anticipation and nervousness threading through her chest, as she realized that the next steps were hers to take, guided by the rhythm, the rules, and the subtle instructions implicit in Lucas's measured presence. She adjusted the bag, feeling the reassuring weight of it against her side, and noticed the slight shift in the lighting as the rain refracted against the glass, patterns that revealed new angles and subtle reflections she had not seen before, and with each careful step she took, her awareness expanded, noticing the smallest sounds, the soft creak of the floor beneath her, the gentle hum of distant traffic outside, the faint brush of air across her skin, and Lucas's calm, yet authoritative presence anchored her, a reminder that every detail, every choice, every observation mattered, and that she was now part of a sequence that required attention, perception, and deliberate engagement. As they moved deeper into the building, the corridor opening to a small, organized space, Emily felt the tension of anticipation blend with a growing sense of comprehension, each object, each shadow, each reflected light now part of a larger pattern she was beginning to understand, a map of careful control, observation, and measured influence. And she marveled at the clarity that emerged from her heightened focus, the way each element contributed to the rhythm of the environment, teaching her patience, awareness, and the subtle art of presence. Lucas spoke, voice low, calm, carrying authority without force. "You are exactly where you need to be. Observe, learn, and remember." And Emily nodded, letting his words settle into her awareness, absorbing the full gravity of the lesson, the weight of observation, the power of subtle control, and the rhythm of the night, the room, and the storm outside blending into a single flow of perception and attention, each moment an anchor, each glance a key, each subtle shift a story, until she realized that the evening, the bag, and Lucas's presence had reshaped her understanding of focus, patience, and engagement, and she felt herself fully immersed in this carefully orchestrated reality, alert, attentive, and ready for whatever came next, knowing that she was part of a continuum of presence, influence, and consequence, every heartbeat synchronized with the measured cadence of the night, and the unspoken understanding between them held a quiet promise that this experience, though unfolding in measured steps, had already begun to change the way she would perceive, respond, and participate in every subtle movement of the world around her.